If you think about Kurzgesagt, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Maybe it's the small, cute and innocent birds which appear in the videos only to be carelessly murdered in brutal experiments? Or the mind-bending topics which keep pushing viewers into existential crisis? Well, maybe. But probably it's the bright and harmonizing colors that fill up all of this misery and turn it into beautiful pieces of art which could be directly taken from a child's book. Aw, also look how cute that little bird is! Kurzgesagt's videos might be sinister, but they always keep a happy and positive attitude. And that's mostly achieved through their color palettes. So, do you want to learn how to murder innocent birds in a fabulous manner too? Well, then let's jump right in! This is the third and final part of a small series, in which we're taking a look behind the birds and the colors of Kurzgesagt and trying to find the secret, which makes the videos so appealing. If you haven't seen the previous parts yet, you can find them up here. In this video, we're gonna find out how Kurzgesagt uses colors and contrast to add visual and emotional depth to the images, and how we can reproduce that effect ourselves. Also, at the end of this video, there will be a little surprise for you. Furthermore, before I started making this video, I reached out to an art director at Kurzgesagt and asked him a few questions to better understand their workflow and provide you with the most accurate information. There will be quotes of his being displayed at certain points of the video. So now put on your Kurzgesagt merch, fetch your pet duck and enjoy the video. One of the first questions to ask yourself when creating a new illustration or animation is, what do I want to convey with the image and how do I want my viewers to feel about it? Let's take this scene from the video What If We Nuke a City, for example. In this scene, Kurzgesagt explains how you'd feel after surviving a nuclear attack on your city. It's very dramatic and the mood is depressing, so it needs an according touch of color. The palette mostly consists of dark shades, mixed with a decent amount of warm hues like red and yellow. These colors automatically create a dark, smothering and threatening atmosphere, which perfectly fits that scene. Now on the other side, there are of course peaceful and beautiful scenes as well, like this one. It features a bunch more vibrant colors and makes you feel all warm and cozy, which is exactly the intention behind it. So knowing what the final shot will look and especially feel like can be really helpful in deciding what colors to choose. After that, Kurzgesagt usually continues by looking at references for their scenes and creating first rough illustrations from that.
When we start a new video, we first illustrate a few moods to find out how the video feels. This means that you define certain dominant colors which make up the atmosphere of the video. So you just jump into the color wheel and try things out. I often take photos as references to find color clues. The whole thing is then usually interpreted in a shorthand way, completely exaggerated with too much saturation and little black. If the mood stands, one can derive a rough color palette for the respective video, which we then use as a guideline.
Building a story around your illustrations, no matter if still or animated, is essential for keeping the viewers engaged and curious. One of the fundamental tools for telling your story is guiding the viewer's eye towards the subject of matter. And in order to do that, there's a simple tool we can use. Using contrast thoughtfully in your scene can automatically organize it and divide it into multiple sections, which the viewer can explore one by one. For example, Kurzgesagt likes to keep the background of scenes mostly darker or lighter than the foreground, so you can focus on what's going on in the important area. And this is only one way to use contrast. Now, the word contrast is a stretchable term and can refer to many things. But in our case, it refers to the contrast between shades and the contrast between colors. Let's start with the most obvious contrast there is: black and white. This is the boldest contrast we can possibly create. Right now, everything is evenly spaced and balanced out. However, if we take, let's say, the white side and shrink it down, you will now get the focus point, which your eyes will automatically follow. As a rule of thumb, you can say that we are always drawn to the most contrasty part of an image. So, if we now take this rule and apply it to an image, the subject of matter should always have the most contrast to its surrounding, so the viewer has an easier time finding what's important in that image. This also helps you tell the story, since this way you can determine what part of the image seems relevant to your audience and what part doesn't. The same rule applies to the contrast of color, though it's a bit more complicated this time. Instead of having only one variation of contrast, we now have 5. I won't go through all of them since this topic tends to get boring quite quickly, but I'll give you an overview of the most important ones. First of all, we have the most popular and probably also most used contrast, the complementary contrast. It combines 2 colors laying on opposite sides of the color wheel and therefore creates the boldest possible contrast in colors. It not only combines 2 fundamentally different hues, but also bright and dark colors, making them differ from each other even more. And even though it's a quite harsh one, our brains tend to like the combinations this contrast creates. Blue and orange is probably the most famous example for that, as it's seen in many movies and TV shows these days. The artists of Kurzgesagt tend to use it too, not only to create nice looking images, but also to separate 2 layers of an image from one another, for example fore and background. Furthermore, this variant of contrast even holds the secret as to why Kurzgesagt illustrations always pop the way they do. Colors of this contrast appear brighter and more prominent together, making already strong colors seem even brighter and more shiny when combined. So we just uncovered another secret of Kurzgesagt style. The second contrast we will look at is the monochromatic one. This is actually the one we used in the last video to shade our objects. Different from the other ones, this contrast doesn't combine multiple hues, but instead takes one hue and separates it into different shades. This way, the same color gets displayed alongside its darker and brighter self, making the contrast the perfect method to give depth to your illustrated objects. The last contrast we will look at is the triadic one. This contrast takes 3 evenly spaced colors from the palette and puts them together, creating a quite harsh but still pleasing combination. By using all of these contrasts together, you can guide your viewers through the video only by colors and make your images look pleasing and interesting at the same time. Now, we have talked a lot about hue and contrast, but we haven't talked about saturation yet. Most people would probably say,
"Don't use too many saturated hues together because it's hard on the eyes."
But Kurzgesagt doesn't give a fuck about that. To the contrary, they even do the complete opposite and basically bomb your eyes with highly saturated colors. So why does it still work so well then?
Well, first of all, we don't always manage to make it colorful and harmonious. At the end of the day, a lot of it can be traced back to color theory. It's important to know what color contrasts there are. If an image has so many colors that it makes up a large part of the color wheel, you should still have these contrasts in mind within the image groups. Contrast is very important, not only with colors. Contrast should be seen in the overall context as tonal value. A tip we can give is that the HSB color system helps best in our experience. Always work with all 3 parameters: hue, saturation, and brightness.
So, as we've heard just now, one of the reasons our brains like certain combinations of highly saturated colors so much is because of a concept developed over many years by a lot of artists and researchers. It's called color theory. Has many branches and subtopics. The one we've just explored is called color harmony. It defines why certain colors harmonize well together. And this has to do a lot with the psychology behind colors. Our brains are programmed to give certain meaning to specific colors. For example, red is mostly perceived as relatively dangerous and aggressive, while blue calms us down, and sometimes even saddens us. Of course, this is not always true and really depends on the context in which these colors are used. But color theory gives you a basic understanding of how specific colors are usually perceived. The same goes for saturation of colors. If you take away the saturation of an image, you're kinda taking away the fun and joy of it, leaving behind a dull and depressing scene. In some cases, this can be a pretty powerful tool to tell your story. But Kurzgesagt is doing the complete opposite, and still they manage to evoke emotions inside of us, even without lowering the saturation one bit. That's because Kurzgesagt's artists have become masters at using the right colors for their scenes. As shown in the beginning, Kurzgesagt manages to evoke emotions inside of us purely by using simple colored shapes. Surely this is not fully based on color theory, but also on experience and skill. Nonetheless, knowing the meaning of colors can be a really mighty skill when creating illustrations. So I definitely recommend having a deeper look into that topic. I linked some helpful resources down in the description. Once you have found a reference that fits your idea, you can start picking base colors from it and mix them together to see if that fits your vision. As mentioned near the beginning, Kurzgesagt first creates moods from their references, meaning that they take certain colors and start illustrating rough scenes with those. If the mood of those scenes feels right, they continue by putting together a color palette for the video and use that to create the beautiful videos. Now we have talked a lot about the theoretical stuff, but how do we put this into practice? Well, let's put our pet duck aside and get illustrating. In the previous videos, I have already shown you how to create Kurzgesagt-like objects and how to shade them accordingly. Now the last step is to find the right colors. But before we can do that, let's exercise a bit. Imagine you'd be getting this illustration and should decide what colors to use for it. You don't have to know the exact color for each detail, just some rough ideas. I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to create a color palette in your mind before I'm gonna reveal the result Kurzgesagt came up with. If you need more time, just pause the video. So, let's go! Got it? Great! Now this is how Kurzgesagt designed the illustration. They mostly used natural colors like green, brown and blue. The most contrast emerges around the plant in the center due to the contrast in the bright and dark shades. They also use guiding lines to move your eyes towards the center. This is a trick you can keep in mind as well. Now let's move on to the next image. Ready? Let's go! Amazing! This is Kurzgesagt's result. Here they used a bunch of red and yellow hues in the explosion and more darkish colors in the surrounding birds and vegetation. This setup kinda creates a frame around the main subject, so you can focus on it and only later explore the rest of the image. The birds and leaves blend together quite well, so there's not much contrast between them, which could distract you from the important stuff. The one thing that stands out though is the duck. It's dark while the sky is rather bright, creating a quite harsh contrast between them, and therefore forming another focus point. Due to the position and size of the duck, you could say that the artists intended to form a kind of connection between the duck and the explosion, since one caused the other. But this is only my interpretation of that picture. If you have a different opinion, feel free to let me know in the comments. And now, the final image. Great job and thanks for hanging in here with me. Now, here's the original by Kurzgesagt. This is a very complex scene and there's a lot going on in here. It might seem a bit overwhelming at first, but if you look closely, you can tell that it's divided into different sections. There's a path that holds different shades of brown, there's a greenish hill surrounding it, and far off in the distance there is the city with the greenish mountains surrounding it and the sky. The main subject of the scene is the city. This is implied by the path leading to it and the high contrast it has to the other objects in the background. Usually you would probably miss the city if you didn't know it was there, but since there is that path with that really high contrast to its surrounding leading to the city, your eyes have a visual guide they can follow until they reach the main subject of this image. So Kurzgesagt managed to tell a story in that image only by using clever composition and color. This should help you get your head wrapped around this topic a bit more. I know that it can be hard starting out with illustrating like Kurzgesagt, but you're on a good way. And now, it's finally time for the little surprise I've promised you. To make it even more intuitive, putting together beautiful illustrations, I have created a full library of Kurzgesagt colors, including over 500 color swatches and 7 unique illustrations based on the originals by Kurzgesagt illustrators. It's even available in a light and dark version. You can use it in all of your projects and combine those colors using the rules we've just talked about to create unique masterpieces. So now go ahead and have fun with it. You can fetch it from the link in the description. Also, you can decide to either download it for free or leave me a little tip, because it really was a bunch of work putting this together. And if you've got any feedback or criticism, feel free to let me know either in the comments or over in our Discord. Anyways, thanks a bunch for watching and keep creating!